This comparative study will compare Bong Joon-ho's 2013 film Snowpiercer and Galder Gaztelu Urrutia's 2019 film El Hoyo, retitled as The Platform for the English release, and will focus on how the exploitation of the class system is represented and portrayed in these films, analyzing them through a Marxist film theory lens. These films were chosen as they both portray class disparity and the exploitation of the different classes in an unequal class system. Furthermore, they come from contrasting socio-historical contexts, with Jun-ho, a South Korean director releasing Snowpiercer in the USA, and Gaztelu Urrutia, a Spanish director, with El Hoyo set in Spain. Class division and exploitation can be viewed through a Marxist film theory lens established by Karl Marx. Marxism focuses on the ideas of class division and the socio-economic hierarchy, where Marx wanted societal change to occur radically rather than gradually. Set in the not-too-distant future, after failed attempts to reduce the effects of global warming resulted in the Second Ice Age, Snowpiercer follows Earth's last survivors who live on an ever-moving train that circulates the entire globe, protecting everyone from the harsh weather outside. The wealthiest survivors are located towards the front of the train, living in luxury, while the poorer survivors are located in the tail end of the train, living off protein blocks and limited water. In an attempt to better the living conditions, the tail end passengers storm the other carriages in hopes to take control of the eternal engine and thus control the whole train. Unlike Snowpiercer, El Hoyo is set within a 333-story vertical prison with two prisoners or self-selected entry participants on each floor. The inhabitants of the prison are supplied with food off a floating platform, which descends to each level. The inmates can't keep any uneaten food from the platform after it has descended to the following level, and in doing so is punishable by death by extreme heat or cold. In an interview with Collider, Gaztelu Urrutia claimed that being so deliberately abstract, leaving countless nuances on the threshold of comprehension, it is understood as we had planned in almost every country in which it has been seen. Inequalities occur everywhere in one way or another. If on the platform instead of food we would have placed medicines, the film would have been understood in a similar way. This exploration of class struggle and disparity through a Marxist lens will be discussed through the use of mise-en-scène, cinematography, and lighting to portray the barriers between the classes, as well as the archetypal male protagonist's awareness of class struggle and exploitation, and the use of children as a symbol for creating change within the class system in both films. Portrayal of the unequal class system is achieved through the use of mise-en-scène, cinematography, and lighting. The setting of the film is one of the more easily recognizable symbols. With the characters in both films confined to one setting, the idea of society being stuck within the class system is represented. The train setting of Snowpiercer portrays the distinct separation between the classes, with the lower class passengers locked away in the tail end carriages and further from those ahead in the train. The portrayal of the different classes is further distinguished through the use of lighting and cinematography. The lower class passengers in the tail end of the train are shown under low light conditions, with many close-up on the characters creating a feeling of confinement within the tail end carriage. Whereas, when these characters travel to the middle class carriages, both the lighting conditions and cinematography styles change. The long shots place focus on the larger living conditions, and the neutral lighting contrasts the living conditions of the low and middle class. Though the middle and upper classes are relatively similar, the lighting used to portray the upper class is more colorful and vibrant compared to the neutral lighting of the middle class. Still, these two classes are very similar when being distinguished from the lower class. However, in El Hoyo, the lighting stays the same for the most part within the vertical self-management center, and changes only when the top kitchen floor or final few levels are shown. Gaztelu Urrutia stated in an interview with Collider that, aesthetically, the kitchen is represented by cheerful colors and machines that look like toys. It tells us that something is not right in the consciousness of those above. There is clear contrast between the bright lighting used in the kitchen compared to the neutral blue lighting within the prison. Furthermore, El Hoyo reverses the cinematography technique used in Snowpiercer, with a close-up shot of the actors used in the kitchen setting and a more wide-angle shots used in the prison. This creates intimacy between the upper-class people and the audience, which then contrasts the lack of connection we have to lower-class prisoners. The layout of the prison further fits the typical symbolic hierarchy design, with a vertical design compared to the horizontal design in Snowpiercer. As the protagonists descend the levels and are exposed to the different living conditions of the lower prisoners, the mise-en-scène of acting of the prisoners changes, portraying the low-class prisoners as more aggressive, which is a stereotype of lower-class people in Spain. This is often induced by the constant fight for survival that lower-class civilians experience. An area within Marxism discusses the proletariat, the working class's unawareness of class disparity and inequality, which allows for the class exploitation to continue. In order to create a revolution, a person or figure needs to be made aware of this exploitation in order to open the eyes of the rest of the lower class. However, in both Snowpiercer and El Hoyo, most of the proletariat and the male protagonists are aware of this class disparity. It can be inferred that initially the proletariat were unaware of the disparity, but since these films are set in the near future, this awareness has been introduced prior to the opening of the films. In Snowpiercer, the male protagonist Curtis takes charge of the rebellion after Gilliam passes down his authority. With some of the younger tail passengers only ever have lived on the train and unaware of the difference in treatment of their carriage compared to the others, Curtis uses his awareness of the inequality to bring awareness to the other passengers. Without his determination to spread this awareness, the rebellion wouldn't have occurred, and thus a radical change in society wouldn't occur. Andrew M. Butler claimed, in his film studies book on Marxism, that intellect can set the individual free. In regard to instilling the ideas of an uprising or revolution to create radical change in society, the intellect would be the awareness of the inequality, and with this awareness, further change can be made to allow for the disadvantaged to be set free, through the means of a revolution or uprising. The male protagonist's awareness is also evident in El Oro. Awareness of the inequality is essential to instilling the idea of a revolution within the class system. Within the Vertical Self-Management Center, though most prisoners, except for those on the top floors, are aware of the inequality within the prison, the creation of a revolution still relies heavily on the male protagonist spreading further awareness. Although the male protagonist fails to gain enough followers for the revolution, Goring is able to spread enough awareness that he can at least create his own revolution without interference from other lower class prisoners. Before Goring spreads the intellect and awareness, he is met with violence when traveling to the lower floors. But after word of his revolutionary ideas and awareness of the inequality in the class system spread to the other prisoners, they allow him to work on the revolution himself. So, in this film, the male protagonist's awareness of the inequality isn't enough on its own to instill a revolution as seen in Snowpiercer, but spreading of this awareness does overall help to create a radical change in society as proposed by Karl Marx. This awareness of class struggle leads to an attempt in creating radical change to the system, and both films use a child or children in general as a symbol for this change. The children in Snowpiercer are often taken to be used in the engine room, while the protagonist in El Hoyo goes on a journey to find the child in the prison to use her as a symbol and message to the upper class people. Guardian author Ann Bilson claims that there are plenty of films in which a child is reduced to collateral damage, usually along with its mother, the hero's wife, providing him with a pretext to go on a righteous rampage. Miharu and her child are reduced to collateral damage in El Hoyo. While Miharu's death is collateral damage of the class system, her daughter unintentionally trapped in the prison is further collateral damage. The audience and Gerong recognize the child as collateral damage and use this to serve as a symbol for change within the class system. In the final few minutes of the film, as Goring walks with Trimagasi into the void, presumably dying, the child is seen traveling up on the platform as it passes each floor and eventually reaches the top. This is the final clip of the film, and the aftermath of the child reaching the top is never discussed. However, the audience is led to believe that this child, acting as a symbol for change, will bring light to the class struggle present within the Vertical Self-Management Center and make a significant change. Karl Marx believed that to achieve the transformation of society, the proletariat had to conquer political power. However, in order to achieve this, enough people needed to be in support of this movement. While not specifically mentioned, with only one child acting as a symbol and the revolution only led by 3 lower-class citizens in El Hoyo, it is likely this revolution failed. In Snowpiercer, unlike El Hoyo, the children are frequently taken from their families in the tail end of the train to serve as moving parts in the eternal train engine. The eternal engine serves as a symbol for maintaining class structure, as symbolized by the train carriages, and thus, since the children play an essential role in the eternal engine, play an essential role in maintaining class structure. While maintaining this class structure, they are caught in the crossfire of the class system, and therefore become collateral damage as well. Issues within the class structure primarily arose from the older generation, but the children are still disadvantaged and affected by these issues. In this scene, the children are taken away from the proletariat, leaving the lower class without the symbol and hope for change. It is likely that the upper class intentionally took the children to stop them from serving as a symbol for change, but the removal of the children just adds to the determination of the lower class to stand up for what they believe in and take charge. In conclusion, both films can be viewed through a Marxist film theory lens, as they both portray class struggle and disparity, only varying in their portrayal of the inequality as a result of the differences in the socio-historical conditions of the countries in which they were released.